have these masterclasses on a regular basis where we touch on some of the areas of learning and professional development that we need as a group. So I think it's really excellent that we are starting this year with the topic on writing winning proposals, because as researchers, we know that funding is the core, is the foundation of all the research work that we have to do. It has to be paid for somehow. And being able to write successful research grants is really an important aspect of the work that we do as researchers. So I'm very happy to welcome our speakers today. I think I see one of our speakers, but I'm sure Dr. Amina will be joining us soon. And so I'll hand over to Dr. Yinka to give us the essentials, the nuts and bolts of writing these winning proposals. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Dr. Amara, for your kind introduction. So today, at the time that we have would be sharing some tips about writing grant proposals. And the way I've put it is, we would have some overview of some key concepts, have time to reflect, because I find that very important, because most times we're very busy, that when we go for events like this or go for trainings, we have our minds there, but once we step out, it's most likely that other things, take up the time. So I've tried to put in a few moments for us to reflect, to have some engagements, and hopefully we would be able to enjoy our time together. So basically, we're talking about the essentials of writing winning grant proposals, and I've tried to make that in a way that would reach out to both individual fellowships as well as those who would be applying for research grant itself. So I've broken this into three main parts. So introduction to proposals, not marriage proposal now, but research proposals, and what that means, and a few other concepts would be looked at. We then look into the core of this discussion, which would be to look at some of the essential components. Absolutely, we can't go into the details of everything within the time that we have allotted for this, but we would try as much as possible to cover grounds. And finally, we would be looking at these, I think, would be very important, looking at how proposals are evaluated. And I would be sharing my experiences from the European part of the perspective. And hopefully later in the day, Dr. Amina Al-Imam would be joining us to share some of our experiences with the recent application that she made for the Fulbright that she's in the US currently working on. Okay, so what's a proposal? It's basically a concise and coherent way of proposing a particular research that you want to do. Now, concise because it has to be straight to the point. It has to be told, the story you are presenting, the way you are selling the research you propose to do should be in a way that compels whoever is reading it that they have to fund this. And it has to be a coherent summary, because your proposal wouldn't be everywhere. It has to be tidy. It has to follow a logical sequence. It has to be understood why it's important and why it needs to be funded. So why do we write research proposals? If I may ask, anyone in the audience wants to give insight into why we write research proposals? Has anyone written research proposals before? It would be interactive as much as possible. So please, let's talk in time so we save time.
Can I contribute?
Yes, please, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. We write research proposal because on one hand is somebody with an idea to solve a problem which has been identified. On the other hand is somebody who is ready to support the development of research and has the fund. But he cannot give this fund to everybody. And of course, each funder has a focus. So you identify the funder and his focus, and you must write your proposal to meet the focus of the funder so that the proposal is accepted.
Thank you very much. That's a very good insight. And you've covered some of the grounds that I'll talk about even in later slides. So thank you very much, Dr. Mike. So money is important in research. Like, absolutely. We can have all the ideas in the world, but if there is no funding to execute those ideas, it will just remain in the realm of ideas. So we need to write proposals to convince funders that we have the ideas that can solve problems. It's important to write proposals also to advance our research and career development. And this is the emphasis on fellowships, which we would look at, which are at various levels. And also, we write proposals to be able to translate, to transfer the knowledge that we've generated from our research to the wider society. So different outreach activities would need to be funded to understand, to be able to translate the knowledge that's been generated in the lab to the outside world, and also to inform and enlighten the general populace. So that's some of the reasons why it's important to write proposals. So I'll be talking about proposal writing from two perspectives: from the career development, or what is called the fellowship route, and the research itself, the route. I'm highlighting the Marie-Skłodowska Action, which is funded by the European Union, because my current work is funded on one of the fellowship, which is the Sparkle project. And what that program is doing is to fund people who will be future leaders in photonics. Photonics is basically the application of light to solve different problems, and that's applicable in different areas. So my interest and my emphasis, the project is looking at how light could be used to develop new materials that would help in the treatment and the management of cardiovascular diseases. So I'm coming from the microbiology background, but we'll be developing skills in photonics, regenerative medicine, and tissue engineering, sort of that. Also, I've highlighted the example of the Fulbright, and would be, I think in NAM, we have the privilege of, two of our members are Fulbright scholars. Dr. Yemisi Jeff Agbola was a Fulbright scholar, and currently we have Dr. Amina El Imam, who would share some of our insight into that process. So that's fellowship. The European Union, the Marie Curie Action, have fellowships in the doctoral area. So for students who want to do a PhD, they have systems where different organizations come together to write. In the past, in the Horizon 2020, it was called the IT and the Teaching Network, the Innovation and Teaching Network. But now it's called the Doctoral Network. And what they do in that sense is to design programs that address particular problem, list out different projects under that program, and allow people from all around the world to apply to it. There's the postdoctoral fellowships, which is one of the ones I am on at the moment. And they also have staff exchanges. So this is built on the model of universities coming together in critical areas of advantage and allowing staff members to interact. Now, these are not only the fellowship opportunities that are very available. The German government have a DAAD, we'll call that, which have a range of opportunities for researchers to benefit their careers through short-term grants and fellowships across board, from just being postgraduate students even to academic researchers. In the areas of research grants, we have the European Research Council, the ERC, which gives very huge funding, over €1 million, so between €1 million and €5 million to individuals to develop a program of research that's open to people in the EU and associated countries. And there's this Horizon Europe program, which is the, I think the next framework, it's currently the framework program of the EU, where they have over €90 billion through different instruments to fund research in different areas. The IFS funds individual researchers. So when we talk about grants, it could be individual awards like the European Research Council starter grants that I mentioned, and also the IFS. I know colleagues who have won the International Foundation for Science awards. I think it's about $20,000 US for people, including in Nigeria, to,
15.
Pardon?
15, between 12 and 15.
Oh, okay. I thought someone won 20 at the time. Okay, fine. Thank you for that information. So that they fund that for them to develop particular research projects. And from what I know, it could be renewed depending on how well the first went. So there are also what is called consortium research projects, and that could be, it's not individual. So it could be, I know TED Fund has what they call the National Research Fund, which could allow universities, I think that's limited to only government-owned university at the moment, to build partners in different institutions and could apply to big projects. Yeah, I know someone who has won that also in recent time. The last one that I want to mention is big regional projects. So the World Bank funds clusters of excellence that are like center of excellence in different research areas. I know the FUNAB has one center of excellence in agriculture. They host that, and they also host University of Mina. There's one on mycotoxins in Federal University of Technology, Mina. There's one on infectious diseases and genomics in Redeemers University. So these are big international research programs that fund projects and fund institutions to develop critical research skill, as well as build people, run master's and PhD programs in those different clusters of excellence that they have. So I would just want to switch in understanding research proposals. What is it? What should we look out for in research calls, in proposal calls? How do we identify the key information that's needed, etc.? So in understanding that, where do we find research proposals? What do we look out for in them? and how it's very important to adhere to the guidelines. So I'll just pause here and show, give me 1 second. So this is, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So this is, so the European Union, the MSCA does have 2 major types of postdoctoral fellowships. There's one that's currently now called postdoctoral fellowships, which used to be independent fellow, Marie Curie Independent Fellowship in the Horizon 2020. And there is also a system of co-funding between the EU and different governments within Europe, or different funding agencies within the EU, that they could come together to say, we want to develop critical skills in this area, and they have those partnerships. So what I am on at the moment is what they call a co-fund, which is a co-funding system between the EU and a particular center in Ireland to develop a program, and they make announcements to different parts of the world. So what do we look out for in a call? First is the objective. So in this call, for example, there is the object. It is very clear, okay? This fellowship is to support researchers' careers and foster.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Inka. I just wanted to check that you wanted us to see the funding call itself, not your slide.
Yes, I want you to see this. I'll go back to the slide in a moment.
Okay, no, but what we see is your slide. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Apologies for that.
Perfect, yes.
Okay. So thanks for pointing that out. So in this, there is the objective of the call, which is basically here to support and foster excellence in research. And the eligibility criteria will be clearly stated, okay? So who can apply for it? Very clear. Interested researchers to submit an application in these different areas, and the criteria is also stated. So one of the things I want to point out is that it's important to be able to understand how to read proposal calls so that we don't even waste time at all. If that doesn't apply to us, there's no chance of maybe I might just get a foot at the door. If you are not eligible, it is bounced at the first gate. So it's important that we look at what is funded. Is it a fellowship? Is it you as an individual, or is it a project, and what kind of project is funded? Very important that we understand that. And there's something else that I want to point out, which we could explore on an individual level. There's this thing called Seal of Excellence. So for the EU project, the postdoctoral fellowship, they have rankings. So we'll talk about how they evaluate at the later stages of today. This Seal of Excellence is for people who have over 85% in all of the evaluation, but because of budget limitations, they can't be funded. Different governments have put in place mechanisms where those who have this seal of approval or seal of excellence for that's highly rated could be recommended to apply for extra pot of money from different agencies. So my general advice here is that if we are thinking of applying for fellowships like this, it's a very good idea. We should put in our best foot, and because some of us have had this before, would be happy to give information on that. Okay, I'll go back to my slides now. Just a moment. Okay, so what I want us to do now, can you see my slide, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so what I want us to do at the moment is to just take, could we do breakout room, Dr. Mara?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'd like us to do a breakout room and just take a 5-minute exercise to look at our different career stages, to have an interaction amongst ourselves. What do we think is most appropriate for us now?
Okay.
And why? So do you think it's a fellowship you need? And fellowship for what? And why do you think that's the best approach? So do you think you want to apply for just a full research grant, or you think it's more appropriate to apply for a fellowship where you can develop your research and your career, other soft skills and other areas of research? So if we can do that, breakout room, 5 minutes, and let's have that conversation amongst ourselves, and we will come back. Thank you very much.
Hello, Dr. Amina. So there's a breakout room session happening at the moment. It'll finish, yeah, it'll finish in a minute. So I think no point dragging you into one of the breakout rooms.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be back soon. Hope you're doing well.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. Been a while. I hope you're fine too.
Yes, oh, man, we will chat. We have so much to chat about, but yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Thank you.
Okay. I hope it was useful in the different rooms that it was useful conversation that we had.
Yes.
Okay.
Not so useful in my room.
Oh, okay. We'll have that
Yes.
conversation later, Dr. Mike.
Okay.
In the essence of time, please.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so we'll maybe expect other people to be back in the room, and then we could continue from there. You could see the slides, I suppose.
Yeah, yes, I it's very visible.
Okay, good.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello?
I'm here. I'm going to start now. I think people should be back from their breakout rooms.
Okay.
So we'll then go into the essential components. Now, like I said, the scope of this masterclass, we won't be able to cover everything, but hopefully you'll be able to get one or two tips that would be useful as you go along. So I have designed this to use the project management approach, which would look at the initiation, which is the first stage, planning, execution, monitoring, and the closure of project. So when writing a proposal, what are the components that we want to be in the proposal? So the initiation stage. Now, when you see an image like this, what comes to mind? Pollution. Okay, so in writing a proposal at the first stage, which is the initiation stage, that's where thinking through the problem and giving a good, like you're giving a good position or justification of why this project needs to happen, why it must happen now, and link that to ensure that you have a competitive edge in the proposal that you're putting in place. So you need to state what the problem exactly is when looking at the initiation stage where you are thinking about the proposal. And you could do that through in-depth literature review. This is one aspect that as researchers, we can't run away from because it's important to know what already is being done in that area of work and what the implications of that would be. You could understand the problems by discussing with industry. So if, for example, now I was reading Dr. Anumina's recent publication, and it was about producing a particular enzyme from, about waste valorization, producing enzyme from crop residue, crop waste, using a mold. Are there industries in Nigeria that use that? Would they be interested in addressing this problem? Or are there farms that waste is becoming, big farms that waste is becoming a problem for them of their crop residue, and they would like to do something about it? We could also identify problems by observation. Now, I showed earlier the image of that waste refuse dump. What comes to mind? What kind of problems would have arisen from that? Air pollution would be one. You might want to think about what would be it could be a site, people who live around that area could be predisposed to different
Recording in progress.
Different infectious disease outbreak. Different infectious disease outbreak. Hello. Okay, I think I was echoing. Okay. And then the last one is engaging with stakeholders. And who will stakeholders be in this case? Those who could be impacted by the research or who the research impacts. So they could either impact the outcome of the research or they are impacted by the results of the research. So why is it important to think through the research properly so as to give a strong basis for why it needs to happen? It's important to be able to state why this research proposal, the research you are proposing, is important. And while it might be a local issue, it's important to set the context in a global scale. For example, how does that research, so talking about the image of the dump site, how does that relate to sustainable development goals, for example? How is addressing this problem important for reaching SDGs? Now, at least Nigeria signed to that. Now, I've also used a context here of a policy document. You could also find critical information that will give background to your project in key national policy documents. So here, I've also put in the National Action Plan for Antimicrobial Resistance. This was developed by Nigeria. And if anyone is working, wants to work or proposing a research around antimicrobial resistance, mitigating that problem, it's important that that research links into that national action plan, because whoever the funder, whoever is reading or reviewing the application will know that this is actually very important because it aligns with national strategies. In initiating your project, in thinking through your project, it's important to know what the current level of knowledge in that area is. Very important to discuss the state of art. And when we talk about state of art, we're talking about what are the solutions that have come to address this problem? Where are the gaps in those existing solutions? And where does your research fit in addressing those limitations? Those build a strong case for your research that you are proposing. So it's important to also state what your proposed solution is. So for example, if your research is looking at producing something, it's important for you to know who you are producing this for, to state who you are producing it for. Are those for the local market? Is it for the export market? Are you producing this to be used directly by consumers, or it would be by major industries that would be, like the middlemen that will be then reaching out as wholesalers to the consumers? It needs to be known directly. Critical question. Do they want it? Do they want the solution? So we might propose ideas that are the most interesting. What is important to also be able to state if they want it. If the stakeholders, those you are proposing the solution for, if you have some basic data or information on whether they are willing to accept the results or not, because that will go a long way to convince them that this is not just an idea from the blues, but this is something that you have interacted with those that would use, and this will affect the potential impact of the project at the end. Are there other groups working on similar projects? Now, this is important because in a country like Nigeria or anywhere else in the world, we will not be the only ones researching into solutions in that particular area. And it's important that we know the limitations of what our quote and unquote competitors are, and we'll be able to propose our unique selling points, why we are different from group A or research group B, or from researcher A or researcher B. How is what we are proposing different and will be a game changer in that area? So all of these are very important to think through before actually doing the writing. Okay, so something that's also very important in thinking through different proposals is what the expected impacts are. By implementing this project that you are proposing, what would it bring? What is the impact in economic terms, for example? What is the potential impact in the quality of life? So I'll give an example of the last project I was working on. Was trying to develop a rapid diagnostics for urinary tract infection. And urinary tract infection is so important because especially among the female folk, it was one of the literature would say that at least through the lifetime, they will have UTI once. And also because of the problem of antimicrobial resistance, it's one of the most important, is one of the most common conditions that antimicrobials are prescribed against. So it means that if you're able to rapidly diagnose, which was what we were doing, and understand the susceptibility pattern of the isolates in quick time, it will help dispensing. So that solves the problem of antimicrobial resistance because you would only use the antibiotic that will be relevant for that condition. And it also means that the quality of life of those who have that condition will be improved because treatment will be quicker. They spend fewer days in the hospital for those who have very chronic cases. And so stating the impact in economic terms, stating the impact to the quality of life and into the general society is very important. That convinces me that, oh, I need to put money into this project or not. So as we talk along, I'll be using an example of this. What comes to mind? Let me just ask that question before we progress. When you see this kind of image on the left of my screen, what comes to mind?
Most growth.
High cut-off wins.
mycotoxins, mold growth. Very correct. So that's what comes to mind. So in say, because now I'm giving this example because it's my first love in research. So when I was preparing, I felt it was a good example to give. So in doing this, in putting a proposal together around mycotoxins, what you want to do is, it could be considered from different angles, but what's the problem that needs to be solved here? Why is this important? What's the current level of knowledge in mycotoxins? What solution are we proposing? There are different solutions. So for example, people would propose sorting, which will reduce. Some would say, oh, we can use biocontrol, which will reduce it. So we need to state what exactly we are proposing and how it's different from others. Now, in putting together that, in thinking through that initiation stage of your project of, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I want to go about it? What exactly do I need, etc., etc. It's important to, in some cases, have preliminary data, or what we call feasibility study, to know that what you are proposing will work. Because research is risky. No one is 100% sure that what they are proposing will work. However, if you have data, say, for example, an undergraduate student had run a small pilot project on this solution you're proposing, you can be confident to say, I'm sure that will work, because a pilot study in our lab has shown that this solution reduces the toxin levels in even contaminated maize by up to 90%, 99%. Because you have some data, you have explored the potential solution, you know that it will work. It gives you a stronger case than somewhere else. Now, in some cases, maybe for financial constraint, that might not be possible, but it also depends on the kind of research you are proposing. Pilot data might be necessary, but wherever it can be provided, it's a very, very strong point to determining the feasibility of a research. So I told us to think about research projects, okay? And write a topic when we're coming today. So if you have done that, for those who know, if you don't know, you can quickly look at the research that maybe a proposal you want to write, and individually now, not into breakout rooms, try to answer these two questions. What problem do you want to solve? Or what problem is that proposed research going to solve? And from that, I would like to refer us to the image of the Sustainable Development Goals on the left of your screen. How does solving that problem impact any of these SDGs? For example, I've given the case of mycotoxins. Which of these SDGs will solving the mycotoxin problem impact? So that's just to give us an idea. So, but do it on your own personal research project, because you have that document with you that will be useful to think on as we go ahead. So I'll give us 3 minutes to do that, and we will come back to it again. So exercise, quick. Thank you. Two minutes more. We have 1 minute more, please. Okay, I think we'll continue now. Don't worry if you're not able to finish, you can always go back to it. It's always an evolving exercise that you could do going forward. So, having thought through the project you want to propose, what are the things? How do you then plan in writing your proposal? How do you write the planning of your projects? I've given an example here of this project, mycoke. I think Dr. Yamsi Jeff and those in mycotoxins area would find this very relevant. So it's important first to give a good title to your project, okay? Your title must be informative. It must inform whoever is reading it what your topic is about. So here we see it's an integrated and innovative key action to mycotoxin control in food and feed chain. So we know that it's not just going to be one management control, it will be integrated, it's going to be new, and it's not just addressing the food chain, it's also for animal feed. It must be specific and obviously unambiguous. It's something that that once it's read, it should give a mental picture of what you are trying to address in your proposal. So important to get a project title that meets this criteria. Another very essential component is that in planning your project, it must have a scope. Now, what do I mean by that? Using the mycotoxin example, your project can solve all of the problems of mycotoxins. So you must be able to decide, okay, within this project, what areas or what kind of solution do I want to bring? In what scope, in what dimension do I want my solution to address? This is very important because it will impact what your work schedule will be like, as well as the cost. So yes, in this project, we are looking at 2 food products that are mostly affected by mycotoxins: maize and groundnut. And you need to justify why you are using those target food products. So it's important to define the project scope so that that guides the other part of writing your proposal. Your objective, so you need to identify what exactly needs to be done. So what's your aim? Once you know what the scope is, okay, I want to address the food chain of maize and groundnut. What are the major parts of that food chain that my project want to address? For example, have I noticed from literature or from other background information that I got in my initiation stage? Is the problem mainly on the field, or is it mainly in storage? Is it when the farmers are just harvesting? What step in that value chain, for example, is the most risky based on the level of knowledge, current level of knowledge. So those, once you know the scope, it helps you to plan what your work is and to determine the objectives you're setting out. I'm bringing the point of being able to link your project to multiple disciplines because it gives your project wider application and impact. So I'll give an example here. Same mycotoxin problem. If you're a food scientist or you're a microbiologist trying to address mycotoxins, would it not give your project more credence if you invite an agric extension officer to be part of your project to look at how to translate whatever you have developed in your project to the final end user, depending on what your project is? Would it also not be an advantage to your project if you could have an economic dimension to the problem you are trying to solve? So I'm not just writing a project of, I want to produce this enzyme or I want to reduce mycotoxins. What's the economic implication of that? If you are able to use this technique or this innovative approach that I'm proposing in this project, what will it lead to in terms of economic terms? What will be the savings for the farmer? What will be the savings in terms of the overall modeling the overall impact on the health sector, things like that. So it's important that when we are looking at the scope and determining the objective of our proposals, that we think beyond our narrow discipline, not just microbiology, not just my music. How does it, how can it have greater impact? So I've given an example here of one of the projects that are funded in the EU, and it's very clear. So the objective here is they want to keep track of the mycotoxicological risk in maize during the growth season in an accurate online way on the farm. And they put on the objectives for doing that. They would develop a predictive model. They would implement the detection of the fungi. They would do monitoring of the genotype. They would translate that. See, environmental sensing, multidisciplinary has come into place. They will develop sensors that could be used on site for that monitoring. They'll develop recommendations to farmers, and then maybe someone with expertise in GIS would come to help them to develop a risk map based on the data on the toxin levels in the maize. So your objective must be clear, supporting what your overall aim would be. So once the scope is determined and your objective is known, that then helps to go to the next stage of developing a schedule. So this is another mycotoxin-based project. And what they are doing here is that based on what they want to develop, that integrated platform, it's on one of these, it's on this My Toolbox project that the example of the previous slide was from. So based on the objective and the kind of activities that will be done, you can then draw a schedule. A schedule will go into, so some people will imagine, how do they come about Gantt chart? Did Gantt chart just appear from the space? It is based on the scope and objectives that work packages, that's what WP means, are then developed. So work packages are basically a discrete set of work structure that helps address specific component of your research. And all of these would need to be integrated that way. So here would see that they have a work package on pre-harvest reduction. They want to reduce mycotoxin. That's the overall in maize. They have pre-harvest reduction. They have post-harvest reduction. There is a way they would integrate that using the sensors. And this is practical implementation, how to set standards and dissemination and exploitation. And see project management here that runs across all the work packages. And we can see how the work packages interact with themselves, okay? How they interact with themselves. So in scheduling your work, it's important that once you determine what the objectives are, determine the activities. From each of those activities, what will be the deliverables? What would be specific outputs that you can? So for example, let's say in work package 1, pre-harvest reduction, what would be the deliverable? In this case, for example, they've talked about they want an integrated approach. Developing the sensor or integrating the sensor might be one of the deliverables in this project that I've given here as an example. So deliverables will be something tangible that at specific time intervals, having gone through this activity, I'm able to deliver this. And all of that fits into your timeline, which is the Gantt chart. It's also important to know how to assess and allocate resources. So a critical example is, what expertise do I need? I have drawn my schedule. These are the 3-4 aspects or work packages that I need for this research. So to accomplish them, what kind of expertise do I need? In these cases, we should not be limited by only those we know, okay? Because those we know might be might not be able to provide the expertise that you need to deliver on the objective. So we should think broad, we should think wide. So what expertise do I need? So I need sensor development, for example. Who can I go to that has that expertise in sensor development? I need economic modeling. Who can I approach that has that skill? Okay. And that helps if, for example, it's in a consortium project, a big project that involves multiple partners, or even if it's an individual award, that you still need some skills as part of your career development. It's important that you put in, you look at people, the expertise they can deliver, and reach out to them. One other thing that I want to mention here is that in reaching out to potential partners, it's important. Hello? Can you still hear me, Kelly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I thought there was a glitch. Okay, so in getting people to partner with you, and I would even say if you are a master's or a PhD student looking at doing a particular aspect of your project, you don't have expertise for it, you need to develop the expertise for it. How do you then find those potential partners? When you find people, maybe through literature or recommendation, it's important to, when contacting them, put their interest first. Okay, so how do you approach them? It's important to let them know what they stand to benefit. And I learned this in the past few weeks. I'm working with my direct line manager to develop a proposal for an EU project, which is very massive, like 4 or 5 million euro project. And when I identified the people that could help us after we've scoped, he then began to make calls to contact these people. And I will sit at the background and just take minutes and see how things go. And one of the things I found out very important is, what do I stand to get? Because everyone is short on time. They want to make sure that whatever they are giving their time to is something they can also benefit from. So when you are pitching to people, oh, I want to come and do part of my research in your lab is excellent, fabulous, fine. They are not there for charity. What do they stand to gain? Are they sure that publications will come out of this? What other ways? Is there potential future collaboration that will come from this? They need to know what they stand to gain and how your coming or your partnership with them will advance the work they are doing too, because it has to be mutual. Okay, because of time, I would not be able to take us on this exercise, but it's something I want us to think about, okay? To see for that project that you have put out, or that topic that you have written, could you look at developing, breaking it down into, different chunks that could form work packages, see how these work packages link, and see the expertise of people that you need to execute it. Now, I don't want us to be limited in that thinking, okay? It's important that just think wide, like an ideal world. Okay, I need this expertise, I can get it. When you then start the contacting, you can shape your expectation then to what the potential partners are ready to commit to. But this is something that it would be good for us to do as an exercise. Okay, executing the project. I'm mindful that I should finish in the next 10 minutes so that we have some minutes for question and answer before Dr. Amina comes up. So some other elements. So when writing that proposal, you have put a good position of why it's important. You have broken it down into work structures, work packages. You've drawn your Gantt chart. You've shown how all of this link. Then it comes to the issue of how do you want to implement the project. Ideally, if it's a multi-partner project, it's good to have a starting meeting. And at that meeting, that's where the interaction happens on, okay, everyone knows what their scope is. If there's any need for any clarification, etc., it can be made. This is a very crucial aspect of implementing research project and in proposal writing, mitigating risk. What are the risks that are present in the research that you are proposing? If you are trying to know, and this is where having pilot data really helps, because there's no assurance that what you're proposing will work 100%, like I said earlier. But what measures have you put in place to ensure that the research project can still go on even when those things happen? So I'll give an example. You are trying to develop a new material that can say is antimicrobial, okay, that you can use on food contact surfaces. If you have not done a pilot study, you won't know how successful that process you want to use would be. But if you have done a pilot study, you could say, oh, preliminary data from my potential partner, or my potential partner has expertise in this. They've done this on other materials. So I'm sure there's that knowledge that can be applicable to mitigate or reduce the risk in this case. So that's just an example of how you need to identify the risks in your project and how you plan to reduce that risk to ensure that it's implemented. It's important to record then the progress that's made. So you want to write in your proposal how you will record the progress. What intervals would you be doing regular checks and monitoring to be seen, if it's a multi-partner project, for example, to be sure that all the partners are doing what they should do, checking that all the deliverables are met at the particular time they should be. And if there's anything that needs to be addressed, it can be mitigated and controlled at that point. And finally, in the implementation stage that you want to write in your proposal is how you want to communicate the progress that's been made within your team and external to your team. How do you want to use regular newsletters? Do you want to have monthly catch-up meetings to monitor progress? Do you want to have a mini symposium at 6 month intervals? where you bring all the partners together. That needs to be made very clear in your proposal. The kind of outputs that will be coming out.
Okay, think about this thing very well.
So it's important to think about what kind of publications where you want to publish. It's good to name, even if that's not where you will publish, it just gives an indication to whoever is reviewing your proposal that this person knows the outlets to disseminate their research to the wider scientific audience. So it could be publications, it could be conferences, where have you presented, whether conference proceedings, journal articles, abstracts, etc. You need to think through it and put them in your proposal. This is an essential part. And while we will not do an exhaustive discussion on how to cost your project, a few points that I want us to consider is it's important to know how to justify the equipment that you would be proposing you want to acquire for the research. What will it do? What work packages will it help? What kind of activities will it help? And how will this be an asset to you even after the completion of your project? So how do you then get the values that you put in your budget? It is not arbitrary figures, okay? You could get quotes from suppliers. In the Nigerian context, for example, while for some equipment, there might be limited suppliers that are available, but it's still important that even if it's the parent company you contact, who will then reach you out to a local contact, it's important to be able to put realistic quotes from suppliers. And those who have won fundings before, who have done projects similar to what you are targeting before, are also a good source of information for how you could budget. But a note of caution is that their own experience might not be current. So it's still important to look out for suppliers. And the final thing that I'll mention here is how to estimate. Now, we can't do this in full, but there is a calculation of knowing how to estimate. So in a 3-point estimate, for example, they look at if you have gotten quotes from, say, 4 or 5 people, you look at the worst case scenario. What's the cheapest? What's the most expensive? What's the reasonable? And then use a particular calculation. Usually it is the pessimistic plus the most optimistic value, the highest, plus 4 times the realistic estimate over 6. So that's the way that it's done, such that you come to a figure that you won't shoot yourself in the leg that what your budget will not be at the time you want to get the people.
Can you take that again?
It is the pessimistic estimate. So the lower band, the amount of the lower band plus the amount of the upper band plus the middle point times 4. So the middle point will be the realistic estimate times 4. So the upper, the lower, plus 4 times the middle point divided by 6. So that will give you an estimate that can be used for your budgeting in a realistic sense. Okay. So at the end, you want to put into your proposal how you want to close it to ensure that all documentations would be looked at, make sure all suppliers are paid, make sure all the deliverables are done, all the potential partners are signed off that they've done all their part. Very important to do a feedback between the partners, probably a closing meeting of sort if it's possible, to see what lesson you've learned from that you will learn from implementing the project, because this is still proposing in your proposal. and closing it formally. So I guess I'll just give this final slide. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go into greater details about this, of how European projects are evaluated, whatever it is, whether it's fellowship, whether it's big consortium grant, how it's evaluated. And maybe later, if there's more time, I could just share a few tips on what's expected. So this is the standard way EU projects are looked at, and that's only based on the experience I have. So after the receipt of the proposals, there is an evaluation. Okay, they have a board of evaluators that they get. At the minimum, they use 3 for each proposal. All of them will score based on specific criteria that they are given. And then they will all meet together to discuss, okay, what point have you given in this area? Why do you think it's so? Okay, maybe adjust, and they reconcile eventually to give a common position. Okay, after that, a panel then sits to see, okay, this is the recommendation from the reviewers. Is it all consistent? Is it all good? And then from that, they make their final list. Now, in making the final list, depending on the budget, they will begin to fund from the top. Tick, 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 tick. It's where the money finishes, it finishes. So you can have a fantastic project that gets excellent marks, but where the money finishes, it doesn't reach the next person. So it's important that we just put our best foot forward to be able to execute that. And in terms of criteria, I think this is where I'll stop. In terms of the criteria, what do they look at? 3 main areas. You want to see the excellence of your proposal. What's the potential impact? And how you are going to implement. Now, remember, we talked about some of these elements. They want to be sure that you have a robust system, or you clearly can implement this project that you have proposed. And in excellence, basically, the key points, they want to see that the objective relates to your project title and the work you are proposing. You are using the state-of-the-art methodology. If your work includes a gender dimension, you appropriately mention that. And by open science practice, what they mean is that how are you ensuring that your research proposal, what you are proposing in terms of the research, will be accessible to the wider community, everyone generally? How are you going to publish, for example? Are you publishing open access? Are you going to make your data available, etc., etc.? In terms of the impact, they want to see, we've talked about this, how would the result of your research, have you demonstrated within your research the potential impacts you would have economically, socially, and in maybe new startups, etc.? And how do you expect to increase the outputs? Are you going to partner with, for example, policy organizations that can make the results into policy recommendations? Are you going to work with industries that they would be able to exploit what you have proposed into actual product or processes that would be on the market? And in the implementation, they want to see your work plan. What's your work package? Do they all sync? Have you addressed the risks? How appropriate is the partner you are bringing on, etc.? And also, so how appropriate are the partners you're bringing on? Okay, so in that sense, I would stop. Thank you very much for listening to my long talk. Let's have questions in the next 8 to 10 minutes, and we can have Dr. Amina share a perspective on the US Fulbright sort of application and what tips we could learn from that. Okay, that's me. Dr. Amara, you can coordinate our question and answer, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Inka. That was a really excellent presentation. I just posted that it wasn't long in any way. I was surprised to see the time, actually, and I'm sure everybody will agree. So I'm sure we can all give Dr. Inka hands of applause in whatever way. Thank you so much. So does anyone have any questions to ask Dr. Inka before we go on into the next phase? You can just either just put your mic up on, or okay, I see a hand up. Yes, Victory, thank you. Victory, you can unmute yourself. The floor is yours.
You can also leave questions in the chat bar.
In the chat
We
as
can save
well.
that so that we can save time.
Oh, can I quickly ask Doc a question?
Oh, yes, please.
All right, thank you, Doc, for your presentation. I'm very much interested in this area school. I think I've made 2 attempts, but very unsuccessful. When you were applying for yours, did you have any kind of support, in developing your proposal, or it was just you alone who wrote everything till you submitted?
Okay, thank you. 2 ways. Number one, I had applied for a fellowship in Ireland after I'd finished my PhD and left. So most postdoctoral fellowships in Europe, whichever country it is, even if it's not EU funded, they tend to use the same template. So I had written one that I won, although I didn't take the position up. So when it came up to this, I identified the call. I reached out to a potential supervisor to say, well, I have an idea of a project. Can we talk? And we had a chat, and I said, this is what I'm proposing. And we're able to come to an agreement to say, okay, push it this way. It was not 100% my idea. It was not 100% his idea, but we're able to come to a compromise to what is useful for both parties, because it's also a partner. So when it came to that, I will write, send to him, it will make a correction and input. So it was a back and forth kind of arrangement that we did until we eventually submitted. And when we submitted, I think the feedback was this, with the last part I couldn't share because of time, is some of the evaluation based on those criteria I mentioned from the reviewers, and how it was very important that I had someone know that it was helpful in the process of the writing. So I think that answers the question.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello. Can I ask my question now?
Yes,
Go ahead,
Victory.
please.
Yeah, please. My question is, there's a grant application I applied for, early career scientists, and after receiving the rejection from them, I asked them for the reason. They said that the application was okay and urgent, but that the sustainability aspect of the application was not detailed. So they said I should improve on that, and then maybe refer the application when next it's open. So I actually want to know how to do better in showing how sustainable your project could be, saying that I don't know, just I want to know how you can kind of show show them
how you
how
can tick that box of sustainability. Thank you. Now, as you were talking, Dr. Inka, I just remembered our application to Microbiology Society, and I guess that's what Victory is also talking about, right? Now, so how do you ensure sustainability of your project? You need to think long-term, how to extend the impact. So for example, let's say you are planning to have a grant that will show people how to do PCR, for example, okay? You want to buy PCR equipment for this particular project. How you would demonstrate the impact or sustainability of that project would be that at the end of this project, I teach MCB 272. It includes one of the classes includes practical classes on PCR. This equipment at the end of the project would help me to be able to give my student practical demonstration in this technique. And also I'll be able to partner with other researchers around me to collaborate on researches that will use this PCR machine to generate data that will publish, and through the publication on the long term, it will improve my professional career, my publication record, etc. So they want to see that that money that they are giving you for buying a PCR equipment is not just for that project and it ends there, but that you have plans on how it will be sustained over time in impacting your teaching, impacting your research, other researchers around you. They want to see that that's 5,000 or 10,000 they are going to give you would outlast the period of the project. That's my idea of what they want to see in sustainability of the project. If anyone else has something to add to that, please feel free to. Okay, any other question? We probably would have 2 more minutes to go. Please go ahead.
Dr. Ayo, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add to that sustainability issue. You know, there was a time I was told that when they're asking of sustainability, that you look at it from 3 different angles: economically, socially, and then environmentally. So if we can also add that to the concept of sustainability after the project, it will be very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's useful. Any other question? Maybe okay, I would just say that maybe after Dr. Amina's section, if people, I know people would you've committed time, but if people are willing, or maybe some other time, we could just go through some snippets of the things they look out for in each of these key criteria areas that they use to grade, because once we know what they are looking for, it's helpful to be able to craft our proposal to be able to tick all those boxes and hit all those points. Okay. Is there any final question? If there's none, we can welcome Dr. Amina El-Imam to give us a perspective on the topic today. Thank you very much. Dr. Amina, over to you.
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So just before you start, do you have slides to show?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Dr. Amara, could you make our co-host or give her the rights, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies, I know it's very early in the morning. So
thank you very much.
Thanks for spending your time with us.
No, it's my pleasure. Is my video visible? Sorry.
Not yet.
Oh. And it's turned on. The video is on. Okay. I guess it's just being slow.
To share your slide.
Okay. Good morning again. I am Amina. I am grateful for the invitation to speak about my experiences as they relate to, sorry, I sound a bit hoarse. I think my voice will clear later. As they relate to grant writing and all of that. I will be sharing my screen very quickly. I wonder if my video has an issue, but that should sort itself out later.
I can see your screen now. Your slide.
We can see your screen and hear you,
No one
so
is showing.
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. My experience with grant writing. Excuse me. My experience with grant writing is not as elaborate, not by a long shot, as Dr. Yinka has. I probably have the least experience among the speakers or in this group because I haven't applied to many organizations for many positions, but the little I have done has resulted in my getting the Fulbright Visiting Scholar Award. So I'm currently at the North Carolina State University, where I'm carrying out some fellowship work, basically what we call postdoc. There's a slight difference between fellowship and postdoc, but it doesn't matter. I'm a fellow. I have research ideas that I was told to come and carry out, and I hope I'm able to implement them before my period is over. So how did I get here? The first thing I tell people is that applying for grants is like the lottery. You can do everything right, follow every protocol, do everything, even go over and beyond expectations and still not get it. And why is that so? Because like Dr. Yinka mentioned, there is almost always more applications chasing limited funds. So there are more people applying for the same thing you're applying for than the money that can go around. And this implies that there would be, even if most people are likely to apply according to criteria, most people are likely to apply. So if there is any shortage, if there is any, I'm echoing. Can you hear me? I'm echoing. Can you hear me? This is incredible.
There is a little bit of echo.
I think it's normalized now.
Yeah,
okay, thank you. So if for any reason, maybe 20 people apply and the fund can only cater for 10, no matter how good your work is, no matter how solid your proposal is, you might unfortunately not be funded. So there is the part that is within your control, but a lot of success in grantsmanship can be attributed to sheer luck too. I'm diving straight into the points. I just have a list of points to bear in mind when you want to apply for funding through the Fulbright program, for instance. Grantsmanship is a painful integral part of academic life. Whether you want to be a lecturer or just a researcher, or you are thinking of diving into industry, or in the meantime, you want to do 1 or 2 postdocs, as long as you're in academia, you will go through the hard and unfortunately painful part of grant writing. And it is what in the West, US and Europe, it's what takes the majority of your time as an academic, your non-classroom time, writing for grants. And you may write about 10 and get 2. If you are very, very lucky, very, very good, you get 4 or 5. But I don't know anybody with more than a 50% success rate. Now, there are different applications. There are, even within the Fulbright program that I am on, there are very various requirements, very different schemes that have different requirements. So what you need to do is firstly get the information about your own specific program, the one you are applying for. Get the information, sit down, read it thoroughly, walk away, come back to it another day. Walk away, come back to it until the requirements become second nature to you. Because you don't want to just be reading and working on it, you will miss some subtle things. It was on the 3rd read that I discovered, for instance, something I was supposed to have included in my application from the get-go. And that is that I needed a supervisor. I needed to have established communication with a host in the UK, in the US, before even putting in the application. And that is partly because when I was reading the first 2 times anyway, I was a bit harried. I have kids, so this can get a bit hairy sometimes. So you need to settle down and make sure that you read everything. Then you do exactly what has been requested. Now, the grammar in which their sentences are constructed can be a bit different from the way we do our things. And everything they ask is not coincidental, it's not by the will, it's not incidental. They deliberately put everything there. So if they say to you that your research should be sustainable, look, it's not just grammar. You would go through the labor of demonstrating how you've integrated sustainability, which Dr. Inka and Madam have responded to. So everything required of the grant, you must include them. This call comes out once in a year. The entire thing, the Fulbright program, takes about 15 months to solidify. So I think I put in my application in, was it April now? And it took several months before I got a response that, oh, your application has been considered. So firstly, let me see if I can get it. I applied in May 2020. I got a response around early September. I got interviewed later in September. That's about 5-6 months or thereabouts. It took that long, several months. After my interview in September, I did not hear back from them until May the next year, 2021. They gave us an induction in June. I was supposed to come in September, but because of that host issue, which I'll talk about again, I was unable to come in until December. What is the host issue? They require that you must have been communicating with somebody before you apply. It's when you have a host willing to take you on that they will fund you. But there is a caveat that if you don't get, they'll get someone for you. Unfortunately, it will take longer and there is no guarantee that they will get somebody, so you may have to forfeit your funding. When I saw that, I was really, I felt low, like, oh, I'm going to miss this because I don't have a supervisor. I don't have a host. Why don't I have a host? The entire time, I kept seeing that Fulbright has called. And this is the year I want to apply. But I was extremely busy. If you're a lecturer in Nigeria, you will know you don't have the time. You only exist to lecture. So I couldn't. There was nothing, I wanted it, but I couldn't apply. Then we went on a strike. We went on a strike in late March 2020. And that was when I decided that, oh, you know what, maybe I should go back to this thing now. I have time. But by that time, it was too late. I was supposed to have established communication with a supervisor, a potential host. So I didn't have a host. And I realized that meant that I was not complying to the exact requirements of the grant. But because I had time on my hands, and I will discuss this a bit more, I decided, you know what, I'll give it a shot. I still have a chance. So I sat down and began to draft a proposal. I had an idea in my mind already. I already knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to work on the valorization of biomass material. But this time around, I wanted an integrated approach that will be like one input, multiple outputs. And I know that it's technical, but I made sure I told, at least in the first page, I found a way to simplify the entirety of my research such that a WAEC holder, a secondary school leaver, would be able to understand exactly what I wanted to do. This is one thing we scientists forget sometimes. We get carried away in the jargons and the technicality of our research. So I made sure that there was a point. It could be your abstract, it could be somewhere at the end of your introduction or wherever, where you have to explicitly and clearly describe what you want to do. In my own case, it was that I intend to use corn stover to produce analyte ABC using this organism and this kind of method or something like that. You don't just make it simple and sweet, because much of the time, the people that are helping to review this thing are not experts in your own sub niche. Science is very varied. For them to find an expert in everybody's, all the potential candidates areas might be a bit hard. So sometimes it's general knowledge they use to assess you. And look, a reviewer is never right and never wrong. Whatever they review, it stands. Whether they're right or wrong does not matter. They have the final say. So if the reviewer cannot understand what you're saying, well, you're not going to move forward. So you will put the technical things that are required in a proposal, but make sure that they have the gist of it, regardless of their area of research. Then I found out that the strength of my application laid in the fact that my research entirely focused on local issues. I was not trying to, be global in appeal, and I was not trying to be 22nd century in appeal. The present issues that we have today in my immediate vicinity was the focus of my proposal. So I said, for instance, that my campus sits on one of the largest, my university sits on one of the largest tracts of land any academic institution has in my country. And in this land, we have abundant biomass of all kinds. And it is a shame that we've not been able to put it to use. I hope to develop the expertise to do that and develop a prototype that I can sell to my university and all of that. So when I mentioned that, it looked as if, oh, okay, this person wants to develop their home. Okay, that's fine, that's good. Why I say this is because I've noticed that all the funders nowadays want you to improve your home. They don't want you to come and join the queue of people struggling to solve their own problem. What is the benefit of your knowledge if your own immediate constituency is not better for it? That is the way they think. So the fact that I was targeting a local resource to solve a problem to solve the economic problems, because if I valorize waste, I would be solving economic issues. People will have more money in their pockets and will be able to generate electricity probably, or some locally important chemicals. So this felt useful to them. And they told me during the interview that that was part of the appeal. Then another point is always tie your previous work. Fulbright does not want to be your learning ground where you're going to learn, oh, this is a pipette. First time in my life, I'm seeing a spectrophotometer, great. No, it's advanced level research. They want you to have basic analytical and research skills, and you can only possibly prove that by showing a track record of you working on this problem. It certainly will not be at the same level we are seeking funding for, but you will show that I have done this thing before, but I only achieved A, B, and C. Now with this proposal, I'll be able to attain D to K. Because research never ends, you don't want to project that, oh, this Fulbright will solve all the problems in your research area. Because it wouldn't. So you need to tie your previous work in and demonstrate that there is something new in what you want to do, even if it's a continuation. And you must be innovative. Don't go there and just want to do things simply one foot after the other. Innovation, show cutting edge research that you want to employ, show how you're doing things differently from the status quo that could facilitate your attaining your goals. Now, one thing you should not be like me, don't rush it. I didn't rush it, well, I didn't start on time. So you must start on time. Get your host on time. You can even get your host a year before the grants call. Like if the grant call is out right now and you feel as if I'm not ready yet, start doing everything required. Talk to the people that will be your referees, talk to the person who will be your host, sort all that out. The moment the call comes out the next year, you're ready. You're ready to go. That way you would have the time to fine-tune your proposal to the maximum. My next point is this, right. Look, Grantsmanship is an acquired skill. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the better you get. Nobody will teach you how to write for grants in your bachelor's or your master's. It's very unlikely. And even if you are taught, it's not at the level of a Fulbright application. It takes several days of consistent work to finish the application with Fulbright. If you want to be thorough and meticulous anyway. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't have that much experience. When I was in the UK as a PhD student, I applied for, I think, 4 grants, just, student support, because I had financial issues when they devalued the Naira and I couldn't pay my school fees because I was paid in Naira and I was to pay my fees in pounds. So the devalued Naira could not pay my fees. I applied for 4 grants and I got 3 out of 4. And they were small amounts, so they don't really count that much, and it's been old. But all of them, what I did was I made sure that I followed this same criteria, and it worked for me again with the Fulbright thing. So the more you write, the better you get. The more you write, the better you get. And like somebody mentioned, when you don't get, seek the reason why and build upon that, prevent a reoccurrence. And also write papers. It's inevitable. Write world-class papers. You see all those our papers that we write in Nigeria, I'm included. Those ones that have zero value that they are contributing, that do not do anything to shift the needle of knowledge, they won't help us. But unfortunately, that's what we are able to write. So find international collaborators, which is what NAM is helping us to do, even though I hope to benefit more from it very soon. Get international collaborators, write quality papers that are published in Scopus indexed journals. That is the only way you can even stand a chance to be considered. Those your small papers too, make sure that they are well written, because if you don't have enough of the international ones, you can use the small ones to just buffer, just to pad it. But believe me, it doesn't carry half as much weight as a solid international paper. And by international, I mean in a good journal, not just any kind of international paper. Write grants, apply for grants, join your senior colleagues to know about the writing process, grants writing process, and then join them to write papers. If you have done all this, apply. Apply. If you do not meet this criteria, in my own advice, don't waste your time. I'm somebody who is extremely meticulous about how I invest my time. I recently wrote a book about time management. I don't apply for grants if I don't think I stand a 90% chance of getting it. I know it's, let's say 70%. I know it sounds somehow, but that's just me. I have a lot to do, and if something is not going to yield results for me, I don't really waste my time. The first and only fellowship I ever applied for was this Fulbright, and I got it. Because I've seen the Humboldt one, I've seen many other ones. I don't feel as if I can score 70%, And if I see that they say they'll, create a fancy flyer, fellowship for women in Africa, and then you go and read the fine print, it's only 2 fellowships. They'll make a lot of noise about something. You would think, wow, a lot of money is coming into research funding and postdocs in Africa or for women. It's a lie, go and read it, only 20. And they will make flyer, they will have about 50 people in administration, and they'll provide 20 grants. I won't apply. There are 20 people in my university who are eligible for that. Now, imagine all of Africa. And this flyer will go around to come to you about 20 times. So everyone has seen it. I'm not saying that's how you should do. That's just what I did. I don't apply unless I feel like there's a chance. For Fulbright, there are about 800 and something people every year funded globally. And it's not like there's an allocation for Africa. So you are all competing in the same pool. So I felt, I have a chance here. So if you meet the criteria, apply. If not, go and be building yourself to meet the criteria for the next time. Except if lost time is not an issue for you, well, keep applying, because the more you apply, honestly, that's the higher your chances of getting funded, honestly. So the more you apply, you're increasing your chances. It's just not the way I operated. Now, when you're done, when you've applied, get peer review assistance before you submit your application. Download it or print it, share it with somebody, let them look through for you. And even your proposal, the same thing, let them fine tune things for you. But be careful. The Fulbright scholarship in my department, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure, I am the first person to ever go for a Fulbright Visiting Scholar Award. So if people are not familiar with grants at that level, they may not be able to give you very useful advice. They will have general advice, but be careful what you take so that you don't go, they will have good intentions, they are well-meaning, but you don't go and work against yourself. For instance, one advice I got was, make sure you tell them you want to use, what's it called now? What equipment was it? Atomic absorption spectrometry and all of that. Make sure you explain all the big equipment, put it there. And I was like, okay, fantastic. But I didn't also want to scare them off because this equipment cost millions of naira, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. And look, it's a 9-month program. You have to be realistic. Don't go and create the impression that you want to just, that you don't even know what you're doing because you can't put in 20 different high-tech equipment. How will you find the time to use them? You know what I mean? So I took the advice, I weighed it, and I decided to not use that. Then there is the non-well-meaning ones. That advice was from someone who was well-meaning. Be careful. There may be jealousy, there may be hate, there may be envy, they don't want you to go. So avoid anti-mentors, the people you look up to who don't want you to rise. You need to be careful. It is a very real problem, especially in academia. So get your peer review assistance from the people you're sure want the best for you. Much of the success in grant writing is persistence. You have to figure out that this thing is a marathon, not a sprint, and get used to rejection. May you not get rejections, but it's very likely to happen in your career. It is not personal. They did not reject you, they rejected your proposal. And it's not because it is not good enough. Most of the time, it's because it is highly competitive and other people just got it. Like Dr. Inka said, sometimes you just draw a line below a point and say, look, fund the people above this line. It's not about you. So you try again. In continuing, please, when you're writing, ensure that your writing flows. Don't make it haphazard. Tell a story, just like we write our papers, from the beginning to the end. This is the problem I found in my neighborhood. This problem has persisted because of this. I propose that I will do X, Y, Z, and this is how I plan to do it. For X, I will do 1, 2, 3. For Y, I will do 4, 5, 6. And for Z, I will do you understand? In conclusion, I intend that the results I find from this will be applied towards resolving the problem in my immediate society, which is it should flow. It's a story. Start. Do not spend too much time dissecting literature. Focus on literature that has bearing on your work. It should be succinct. Make sure you say everything that's important, but don't be too wordy. Remember again that you are in competition. Say everything, but be succinct. Remember that the reviewer is not the reviewer's primary work. So make things easy for them. Write as if you know. In fact, it goes without saying, your writing is the only thing that will determine whether you'll be funded or not. It's not how beautiful you are. It's not how successful you are. It's not how connected your relatives are. That piece of paper that they will print, that's all. Make the reviewer's work easy. Make the reading easy to follow. Be succinct. What you can say in 2 words, do not say in 100. Chop, chop, chop. Remember that reviewers are experts, but nobody will hire 200 experts in 200 fields to review 200 applications. Experts don't come cheap. So there will be some generalist knowledge that they will use. For instance, they could use somebody who is an expert in bioethanol production to assess the paper of somebody who is, and to assess the proposal who is talking about biobutanol. They seem very similar, but believe me, everything is different, from the microorganisms to the processes to the fermentation conditions to the output to the analysis. Everything is different. So a bioethanol expert, make it easy for him to understand your biobutanol proposal. Then, like I said, read, understand, go away, come back, read, understand, before you settle down to write this thing. Internalize the literature. That way you will see the themes, you will see maybe the conflicting hypotheses in your area. Pick the aspect you want to pursue. Make sure your literature review is very recent, your techniques are modern and realizable and commonly used. So if you want to measure glucose in solution, for God's sake, there's no need to be using a 22nd century, look, HPLC suffices, or GCMS, it suffices, nothing too advanced. Now, thoroughly know what you know and thoroughly know what you don't know. There is a bit of hedging that goes into academic writing. You must know the limit of your knowledge. If you are writing, and this is particularly important because after you submit your proposal and you are invited for an interview, the Fulbright organization is run very closely with your embassy, the American embassy in your country. So they will put together an interview and they will ask you questions. They'll bring experts from your country and embassy staff. If they try to rattle you, you know the limit of your knowledge. You should have no problem saying, I could read about that, but I do not have an answer for now because it's out of the scope of my research. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you could say, well, yeah, I am aware of that, but I'm intending to limit myself to just bioethanol production because biobutanol production in itself requires a completely different set of expertise and equipment, and I'm not sure I would have the time for that. Anyhow it is, just be confident in what you know and do not drag yourself all over the place. If you spread yourself too thin, there might be a problem. So in your proposal, narrow down your research to one niche and then dig in. Go deep, not very wide. When I was interviewed, somebody asked me, he said, Dr. Amina, I see your work, but why didn't you think about plastic degradation? That is very important. And I went, oh, I completely agree with you, sir. And in fact, every time I see the plastic accumulation in our seas and in our environment, it makes me wonder whether I should not, get involved in it. But then I remember that we cannot solve every problem, but every one of us can solve a problem. And this is the problem that I have spent a decade trying to solve. I believe that I have the expertise and I will hit the ground running in this area. If I was to start plastic degradation now, I will unfortunately be using the Fulbright grant to learn the ropes and I will not make much of an impact. So I politely told him that, oh boy, see, don't scatter my head. I cannot kill myself. Give me funding to do the one that I know. That's sort of what I have politely, passed across, that yes, it's important, but it's not what I'm doing. So know what you know, be confident in what you know, be ready to pursue and expand and deepen your knowledge in what you know, and admit what you don't know. As Dr. Inka mentioned, include collaborators. Apologies for my slides, they're not very beautiful. They're not, I'm sorry. Include collaborators. You should know that no man is an island, no woman is an island. Science has gone beyond one strong man. Science has gone beyond Marie Curie kind of research, one expert. No, everything has got to be extensively integrated now. You need collaborators, no matter what you're doing. Even if you want to produce kunu, just produce kunu for research. You need collaborators in food chemistry. You need somebody who a rheological expert from food science. You need a microbiologist. You understand? You cannot do a good proposal for Fulbright without including that. Oh, by the way, I would need apart from my host, I would need collaborators in the form of technologists, technicians. Like for me, I needed technologists, technicians, and people from engineering for my work. And they bore that in mind when they went to get me a host. Because after my interview, they liked my interview and they said, you know what, we'll find you a host, don't worry. And they found me a host, and that was why it took me long, but eventually here I am. So when you are applying, the last stage is your references. You need referees, and your referees are busy people, and they are doing you a favor. So tell them beforehand and then remind them. Remind them. Don't let them wait till the last minute to submit your reference, because their internet could crash, the website could have issues. You don't want to take that chance after all that work. So I made sure my second referee submitted at least a week before the deadline. And when they submit, you will get a notification. So you are sure that, okay, you're done. In all things, be realistic, not overambitious. Now, before you hit that submit button, please edit and proofread everything. Please, this one, you will be writing and you will not see simple errors. I just wrote 2 books. I ordered my author proof, my proof copies from Amazon, and I just noticed one stupid error, and I went, how could you do this? How could you miss it? And then I fixed it, and I said, oh, I'm ready, I'm good. Then I shared it with my husband, and he went, no, this is not acceptable. I said, how did I miss that? So you are so used to what you're writing that even if you're looking at the error, you don't see it anymore, which is why you need a fresh pair of eyes. And you could hire a professional proofreading service to help you do your proofreading. Typographical errors, language errors, grammatical errors, improper use of vocabulary, poor parallelisms, punctuation issues, tense issues, among many other, even syntax and all of that, are issues that can make people say, there are many good applications, let's leave this one. They're not very important, but when it comes down to the nines, when it is at the dying minute, it can be used to eliminate your application. So please edit your work, proofread, have people look through it, and then you will succeed by the grace of God. But if you don't, it is not about you, it's about your proposal. You dust yourself up, you try again. All you need is one yes. All you need is one approval, and it will change your life. I was wallowing in self-pity because my lab work was 0. My outputs were embarrassing to me, myself. I would see my paper and I would not be happy, you know. And then God gave me this opportunity, and every one of you here is more than qualified. If I'm able to do this, I mean, believe me, it's not difficult. All you need to do is also hang out with people who have similar goals so that when these scholarships come out, you're aware of them. Thank you all very much for listening. Oh, okay, this is the obligatory slide. The default slide in my presentations. Thank you all very much for listening.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Amora, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amina. So much to digest and to kind of really reflect on there. Thank you for sharing your time. I think we have run out of time. So Yinka, can we take just maybe 1 or 2 questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, if people are happy with that, that's okay with me.
Okay, so if there is anyone, let me see if I can remove the spotlight so I can see. Does anyone have a question? Okay, there's a question in the chat. What is the difference? Okay, I don't know if that is for Dr. But maybe I just give it to you, Dr. Amina. What's the difference between a technologist and a technician?
Okay, the technologist is the person who helps in the laboratory technologists. They make your media, they sterilize equipment and so on. The technician I met here are the people who work in engineering laboratories. who fabricate stuff and ensure that you're using the right equipment to repair things for you and all of that.
Okay, thank you. I think Dr. Inka has a question. I see his hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Amina, for your presentation. Please, if I heard you well, you applied in 2021 or in 2022? Sorry,
I applied in 2020.
In 2020, and
yes.
You're now going in 2022.
I came in December 2021.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, prior, because I also submitted application last year. So when I saw that you left, so I thought probably